There was once a man who lived in a village nestled between two mountains. He was known for his temper, a fire that burned so fiercely it seemed to consume everything in its path. His anger was legendary, a force that could split the air like thunder, leaving silence in its wake. The villagers called him the Storm, not out of admiration, but out of fear. They avoided him, whispered about him, and prayed he would never turn his rage their way. But the man didn't care. He wore his anger like armor, believing it made him strong, untouchable, until one day, it didn't. It began with something small, a misplaced tool, a broken handle on his plow. He stormed through the village, demanding to know who had touched his belongings. His voice echoed off the mountains, and the villagers scattered like leaves in the wind. But as he stood there, chest heaving, fists clenched, he noticed a child watching him from the edge of the square. The boy couldn't have been more than 6. His eyes wide but unafraid. The man's anger faltered, just for a moment, as he met the child's gaze. And then, without a word, the boy turned and walked away. That night, the man couldn't sleep. The boy's face lingered in his mind. A quiet question he couldn't answer. Why had the child not run? Why had he stayed, watching, as if he saw something the man himself could not? The questions gnawed at him, unraveling the edges of his certainty. For the first time in years, he felt something other than anger, curiosity, perhaps, or the faintest hint of doubt. The next morning, he went to the village elder, a woman known for her wisdom and her ability to see what others could not. He found her sitting beneath an ancient oak tree, her hands resting in her lap, her eyes closed as if in meditation. "I need to understand," he said, his voice rough but quieter than usual. The elder opened her eyes and studied him for a long moment before speaking. "Anger is a fire," she said. "It can warm you, protect you, even light your way. But if you let it burn unchecked, it will consume everything, even you." The man frowned, his temper flaring at the implication. "I am not weak," he snapped. The elder smiled faintly. "Strength is not in the fire," she said. "It is in the hand that holds it." Her words stayed with him, though he didn't fully understand them. Over the following weeks, he began to notice things he had never paid attention to before: the way his anger tightened his chest, the way it left him exhausted and hollow. He noticed how people flinched when he spoke, how they avoided his eyes. And he noticed the boy, always watching, always silent. One afternoon, as he sat by the river, the boy approached him. He didn't speak, just sat down a few feet away, his small hands resting in the grass. The man didn't know what to do. He wasn't used to silence, to stillness, but something about the boy's presence made him hesitate, made him stay. Days turned into weeks, and the boy continued to visit. They didn't talk much, but the silence between them grew comfortable, almost familiar. One day, as the sun dipped below the mountains, the boy finally spoke. "Why are you so angry?" he asked, his voice soft but steady. The man stared at him, caught off guard. He opened his mouth to respond, to defend himself, but no words came. Instead, he felt something shift inside him, like a stone dislodged from a riverbed. He thought of the elder's words, of the fire he had carried for so long. And for the first time, he wondered if it was worth it. That night, he dreamed of the river. In the dream, he stood in the water, the current pulling at his legs, trying to drag him downstream. He fought against it, his muscles straining, his breath coming in ragged gasps. But the harder he fought, the stronger the current became. Finally, exhausted, he let go, and as he did, the water carried him gently, effortlessly, to the shore. When he woke, the dream lingered, its meaning clear. He had spent his life fighting, holding on to his anger as if it were the only thing keeping him afloat. But maybe, just maybe, it was the thing dragging him under. The next morning, he returned to the elder. She was sitting beneath the oak tree, just as she had been before. "I think I understand now," he said, his voice quiet but steady. The elder nodded, her eyes kind. "Understanding is the first step," she said, "but the journey is long, and the path is not always easy." The man nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He knew she was right. Letting go of his anger wouldn't happen overnight. It would take time, patience, and a willingness to face the parts of himself he had spent so long avoiding. But for the first time in years, he felt something other than anger, hope. As the seasons changed, so did the man. He still felt anger. Of course. It was a part of him, as much as the blood in his veins or the breath in his lungs. But he no longer let it control him. He learned to pause, to breathe, to ask himself why he was feeling what he was feeling. And slowly, the villagers began to notice. They no longer flinched when he spoke, no longer avoided his eyes. They even began to smile at him, to greet him as they passed. And the boy, the one who had watched him so closely, became his constant companion, a reminder of the quiet strength he had found within himself. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, the man sat by the river with the boy. The water flowed steadily, its surface reflecting the fading light. The boy looked at him, his eyes bright with curiosity. "Do you still get angry?" he asked. The man smiled, a small, quiet smile. "Sometimes," he said, "but now I know it's not the anger that defines me. It's what I choose to do with it." The boy nodded, as if he understood. And in that moment, the man realized something he had never considered before, that the boy had been his teacher all along, showing him the power of stillness, of patience, of simply being present. The man never became perfect, of course. He still had moments of frustration, of doubt, of fear. But he no longer saw them as weaknesses. They were simply part of being human, part of the journey. And as he sat by the river, watching the water flow, he felt a sense of peace he had never known before. He had learned to hold the fire, not as a weapon, but as a tool, and in doing so, he had found a strength far greater than any he had ever known.